74,000 years ago, the Earth shattered with a concussive force 2,800 times greater than the catastrophic eruption of Mount St. Helens, instantly vaporizing a massive portion of the Sumatran crust. It was an explosive event of such unparalleled apocalyptic violence that it fundamentally and instantly altered the atmospheric chemistry of our entire planet, violently ejecting billions of tons of toxic, pulverized debris high into the stratosphere. Despite the magnitude of this event, the true story of the Toba Supervolcano has been completely misunderstood, deeply overshadowed by a terrifying, long-standing, and highly sensationalized myth of human near extinction. Today, we are systematically stripping away these dramatic theories to uncover the verified, hard scientific truth behind this ancient cataclysm, completely dismantling the legend of the 3,000 human bottleneck to reveal a much darker and incredibly fascinating reality of prehistoric hominid survival against seemingly insurmountable environmental odds. To genuinely grasp the sheer unfathomable scale of the youngest Toba tuff eruption, we must first attempt to visualize the sheer volume of the Earth that was instantly pulverized, superheated, and aggressively expelled into the upper atmosphere. Mount Toba, situated in the heart of present-day Sumatra, Indonesia, did not simply erupt in a traditional conical sense. It catastrophically detonated from deep within. The immense blast ripped a massive yawning void in the Earth's crust and expelled an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of solid rock, highly pressurized boiling magma, and suffocating microscopic glass ash. To put that abstract number into perspective, if you were to take that immense, incomprehensible volume of material and spread it evenly across the entire contiguous United States, it would bury the entire nation under a thick, physically measurable layer of debris. The resulting volcanic ash cloud was an absolute monster of atmospheric physics. It raced relentlessly across the Indian Ocean, completely blackening the skies over the entire Indian subcontinent, swallowing the lush jungles of Southeast Asia in absolute darkness, and reaching all the way to the distant eastern coasts of the African continent. Even today, when modern geologists drill deep into the ocean floor, they pull up ancient compressed sediment cores where the tightly compacted layers of this specific ancient ash still measure over a foot thick. The sheer darkness that enveloped the Earth would have been absolute, plunging entire vibrant ecosystems into a terrifying, unnatural twilight that lasted for months. For the last 20 years, the scientific community and the general public alike have been totally captivated by a specific, terrifying narrative born directly from this cataclysm. The Toba catastrophe theory. Proposed in the late 1990s by evolutionary anthropologist Stanley Ambrose, this specific theory painted a devastating, apocalyptic picture of absolute global environmental collapse. It boldly suggested that the unimaginable volume of highly reflective sulfur aerosols injected into the stratosphere blocked out so much of the sun's incoming, life-giving radiation that it triggered a sudden, brutal, and decade-long volcanic winter. Climate models constructed during that era using the computing power available at the time predicted global temperature plunges of up to 15 degrees Celsius. According to this highly influential legendary theory, this sudden environmental freeze completely decimated the flora and fauna that early Homo sapiens desperately relied upon for their daily survival. The rivers froze solid, the lush tropical broadleaf forests withered and died, and the vast migrating grazing herds that sustained our nomadic hunter-gatherer ancestors starved in the unending, bitter winter. This theory was incredibly compelling to academics because it perfectly, almost too perfectly, aligned with a known, deeply researched anomaly in human genetics, a distinct, undeniable lack of genetic diversity in modern humans. This lack of diversity strongly indicates that at some point in our deep evolutionary past, our population shrank drastically. The Toba catastrophe theory neatly tied these two disparate concepts together, proposing that the global volcanic freeze created a severe genetic bottleneck, wiping out human populations across the globe and reducing the entire global population to a mere 1,000 to 10,000 breeding pairs. Colloquially, it became known as the harrowing moment when only 3,000 humans were left alive on Earth, huddling in isolated freezing pockets in Africa, barely clinging to existence against the dying of the light. It is a story of biblical proportions, but as modern paleoclimatology, advanced Earth system modeling, and recent groundbreaking archaeological digs have definitively proven, almost every core aspect of this terrifying winter myth is scientifically flawed. While the pervasive myth of the freezing volcanic winter captivated the public imagination and the scientific community for decades, modern interactive aerosol models have uncovered a vastly different and far more terrifying global atmospheric threat. When we abandon the early, outdated, and overly simplistic climate models of the 1990s and apply the latest computational data from the Journal of Climate, the underlying fundamental math of the volcanic winter completely and utterly falls apart. The earlier models made a critical fundamental error regarding the actual physical behavior of volcanic sulfur when it reaches the upper atmosphere. They operated under the flawed assumption that the microscopic sulfur dioxide particles would remain evenly suspended as a fine, highly reflective mist in the stratosphere for up to a decade, acting like a giant global mirror. However, advanced interactive aerosol simulations, which require massive state-of-the-art supercomputers to run properly, reveal that in an eruption of Toba's unprecedented, catastrophic magnitude, the sheer, overwhelming density of the sulfur dioxide causes a physical phenomenon known as coagulation. The microscopic particles literally collide and violently cluster together in the chaotic, turbulent upper atmosphere, becoming significantly heavier, larger, and denser. Because they are physically heavier, these large, dense sulfate clusters fall out of the stratosphere much faster than previously calculated by early geologists. Furthermore, their larger surface area means they actually reflect significantly less incoming solar radiation than a fine, evenly distributed mist would. When this crucial aerodynamic and atmospheric correction is mathematically applied, the maximum global cooling caused by the Toba supereruption drops dramatically from an apocalyptic 15 degrees down to roughly 1.5 degrees Celsius. It was undeniably a noticeable climate anomaly, one that certainly caused disrupted weather patterns, severe seasonal droughts in certain regions, and noticeably cooler summers, but it was absolutely nowhere near an extinction-level, earth-shattering ice age. If you suddenly found yourself navigating a rapidly changing prehistoric world where the flora and fauna were shifting under a darkened sky, what specific primitive survival skill do you think would be the most critical for your survival? Let me know your prehistoric survival strategy in the comments below. If the biting, creeping cold didn't bring humanity to the absolute brink of extinction, what was the actual, tangible, physical danger raining down from the violently altered sky? The true, visceral, biological horror of the Toba event was not freezing to death. It was burning. According to highly advanced atmospheric simulations conducted by researchers at the prestigious Max Planck Institute for Chemistry, the true global hazard was the severe, catastrophic, and deeply prolonged depletion of the tropical stratospheric ozone layer. The massive, unprecedented injection of volcanic sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere strongly inhibited a process known as oxygen photolysis, the very complex chemical reaction the Earth requires to generate and continually maintain the protective, life-giving ozone layer. The resulting supercomputer simulations reveal a truly terrifying scenario for any unprotected life on the surface. The Toba volcanic plume caused global ozone levels to plummet by up to 50% worldwide. In the deep equatorial tropics, where the vast majority of early hominids lived, hunted, and foraged, the ozone layer dropped from a healthy, highly protective baseline of 250 Dobson units down to an extreme, gaping atmospheric hole of just 125 Dobson units. This catastrophic atmospheric failure did not just last for a few weeks, it persisted relentlessly for over a year. Without the crucial protective shield of the ozone layer, the surface of the Earth was relentlessly bombarded with extreme, unfiltered ultraviolet radiation directly from the sun. The intense UVB and UVC stress on the surface would have been mathematically akin to the heavily irradiated, toxic aftermath of a global nuclear war. It caused catastrophic, cascading DNA damage to unprotected terrestrial life, widespread, devastating sterilization of tropical plant life, leading to immediate, localized food web collapse, and severe, immediate health hazards for any hominids caught outside. Early humans would have faced rampant, aggressive skin cancers, severe, debilitating radiation burns, and blinding cataracts if they ventured out from the dense, protective shade of the forest canopy or the deep safety of their limestone caves. The Earth wasn't freezing over, it was being methodically, mercilessly sterilized by the unfiltered power of the sun. To truly comprehend the terrifying magnitude and the complex mechanics of this geological chain reaction, we must look far beneath the pulverized bedrock of Indonesia and examine the deeply hidden tectonic architecture of the Earth itself. The standard geological assumption for most massive caldera-forming volcanic events is that they detonate from a single, massive, wildly overpressurized magma reservoir pooling deep within the crust. However, highly detailed, cutting-edge geochemical analyses of the microscopic trace elements and the specific chemical composition of the matrix glass, found deep within the Toba pumice, have completely rewritten our fundamental understanding of how supervolcanoes operate. Researchers from Kyushu University have definitively discovered that Toba was not a single massive bomb waiting patiently to go off. It was a highly complex, intricately interconnected, and dangerously volatile network of at least 4 distinct magma bodies. Categorized meticulously by modern geologists as YTA, YTB, YTC, and YTD. The cataclysmic eruption 74,000 years ago was not a single unified explosion, but a subterranean cascading chain reaction of unimaginable, earth-shattering violence. It was triggered precisely when the medium-sized, highly pressurized YTB chamber finally ruptured its incredibly strained rocky confines. This initial highly localized blast caused a sudden, catastrophic depressurization in the surrounding superheated bedrock, which subsequently and violently detonated the absolutely massive 3,400 cubic kilometer YTA chamber. The sheer, overwhelming concussive force of this secondary titanic explosion pulled the other 2 remaining magma chambers into the explosive sequence in rapid, merciless succession. It was the geological subterranean equivalent of a multi-stage thermonuclear weapon, with each successive explosion triggering an exponentially larger, vastly more devastating blast beneath the fragile, tearing surface of the Earth. Based on these incredible subterranean mechanics, which extreme force of nature do you find more intimidating? The deep, crushing pressure of tectonic magma chambers, or the invisible, high-altitude radiation of a damaged stratosphere? Type tectonic or stratosphere in the comments right now to cast your vote. But a glaring fundamental question remains that baffled geologists for decades. How exactly did such an impossible, logic-defying amount of magma accumulate in one specific, highly localized place on the globe to begin with? A recent ultra-high-resolution seismic tomography study finally solved this ancient burning mystery by successfully identifying a massive physical slab window deep beneath Sumatra. The Indo-Australian tectonic plate is currently and actively subducting or violently sliding and grinding beneath the massive Eurasian plate. Typically, this slow, immense grinding process melts the very edge of the subducting plate, safely feeding normal surface-level stratovolcanoes with a steady, manageable trickle of magma. But directly beneath the Toba caldera, there is a literal physical tear, a massive, gaping window, in the subducting plate itself. This abyssal, deep Earth cavity allows a continuous, massive, uninterrupted flow of superheated mantle material to rise directly from the deep, molten Earth into the upper crust, continuously feeding the volcanic beast with an endless, unyielding supply of raw thermal energy. Even after the suffocating ash finally settled and the skies began to clear, the subterranean violence was far from over. The massive, deep Earth void left in the crust caused the ground above to violently collapse inward over miles of terrain, creating the vast, deeply sunken depression now known to modern geography as Lake Toba. But the remaining magma, still boiling and highly pressurized deep within the Earth, began to aggressively push back against the immense crushing weight of the newly formed lake water. This immense geological rebound thrust the very center of the lake floor violently upward, creating Samosir Island. Radiocarbon dating of the island's ancient uplifted lake sediments proves that for the first 11,000 years after the massive eruption, the sheer, unrelenting upward pressure of the magma beneath was pushing this massive landmass upward at an astonishing, highly visible rate of nearly 5 centimeters per year. Today, Samosir Island sits hundreds of meters above the calm lake surface, acting as a massive, undeniable, physical monument to the lingering, restless thermal energy still fiercely trapped beneath the surface of Sumatra. The most profound and paradigm-shifting revelation about this prehistoric supereruption does not come from the suffocating global layers of volcanic ash, but from the surprisingly unyielding silence of the ancient archaeological record, the ultimate, undeniable, physical proof that humanity did not face a catastrophic, population-ending bottleneck during the Toba event lies buried deep in the dirt. Because the explosive eruption was so unprecedentedly violent, it scattered millions of microscopic, razor-sharp glass shards, known to the scientific community as cryptotephra, across the entire globe. These microscopic shards possess a highly distinct, incredibly unique chemical signature, acting exactly like an ancient geological barcode. Because they were violently deposited across the continents over a matter of mere weeks, they act as a perfect isochron, an ultimate, infallible geological timestamp. This timestamp allows modern archaeologists to perfectly synchronize the timelines of ancient human habitation sites thousands of miles apart, connecting the harsh deserts of the Arabian Peninsula directly to the humid, distant shores of the South China Sea. When scientists meticulously examine deep, ancient sediment cores from Lake Malawi in East Africa, a region absolutely central to the evolution, development, and survival of early modern humans, they found these exact microscopic Toba glass shards perfectly preserved in the mud. But when they deeply analyzed the paleoclimatic and environmental data locked inside those exact same sediment layers, tracing the ancient pollen counts and organic matter, they found absolutely zero evidence of a major temperature drop or a localized ecological disaster. Africa's climate, the very cradle of humanity, remained incredibly, stubbornly stable. The lush, life-giving vegetation did not suddenly die off, the vast ecosystems did not collapse, and the vital, massive lakes did not freeze over. Even more compelling and disruptive to the extinction myth is the hard physical evidence meticulously recovered from the Pinnacle Point rock shelters located on the rugged, wave-battered southern coast of South Africa. Here, archaeologists discovered layers of Toba cryptotephra directly alongside complex, deeply sophisticated human artifacts. Far from showing a desperate, starving population struggling on the absolute brink of total extinction, the incredibly detailed archaeological record at Pinnacle Point shows that human activity actually increased. Their highly sophisticated stone tool-making, their consistent controlled usage of fire, and their complex foraging strategies became more prevalent in the direct aftermath of the eruption. Our ancestors did not wither away in the dark, cold corners of the earth. They rapidly adapted to their changing surroundings, innovated brilliant new survival techniques, and ultimately thrived in the face of adversity. At Ancient Chronicles HD, we believe that the true, verified story of human survival is far more incredible and deeply more complex than any simplified, sensationalized myth. Our ongoing mission is to carefully peel back the layers of forgotten epochs, bringing you the undeniable, hard-fought truth of our shared human history. If you are captivated by these ancient mysteries and the sheer, unbroken resilience of our ancestors, make sure to subscribe and join our journey into the deep past. The final undeniable nail in the coffin of the extinction myth comes directly from the Toba excavation site, located deep in the Middle Sun River Valley of north-central India, a region that was directly in the path of the heaviest, most suffocating, and most toxic ashfall from the Toba plume. Deep, systematic excavations revealed an astonishing, completely unbroken 80,000-year sequence of continuous, thriving human occupation. The local hominids in this specific region utilized a highly specific, highly complex Middle Paleolithic stone tool technology known to archaeologists as the Levallois technique. The sequential archaeological layers clearly, undeniably show that this specific, intricate style of tool-making remained completely 100% unchanged before the Toba ash fell, within the thick, heavily compacted layers of the toxic ash itself, and long after the skies finally, slowly cleared. This proves definitively and undeniably that local human populations living in the absolute direct strike zone of the greatest, most violent volcanic eruption in 2 million years did not perish. They absorbed the massive, terrifying environmental shock, navigated the suffocating, prolonged darkness, weathered the intense, skin-burning ultraviolet radiation, and simply, remarkably, continued their daily lives. The genetic bottleneck that drastically reduced human diversity was not caused by a single dramatic volcanic cataclysm, but by the natural, slow, and highly complex founder effects of the Grand Out of Africa migration, where small, isolated bands of humans slowly spread out to conquer and populate the globe over tens of thousands of years. As the ash settles on the catastrophic, dramatic narratives of the past, the truth of human resilience remains written securely, permanently, and undeniably in the stone. Thank you for exploring the depths of this ancient apocalypse with us here at Ancient Chronicles HD. If you want to keep questioning the established narratives and uncover more secrets buried in the dirt of the past, click the playlist on your screen right now to dive into our full series on prehistoric cataclysms. Keep digging, and we will see you in the next chapter of human history.